Crash in the dust asterisk. The sky above the dead moon was the color of rust, dry and cracked like old bones. Nothing moved except the wind, which carried the dust like whispers of the past. Jack Harper stepped off his small shuttle, boots sinking into the soft red sand. He scanned the barren land with his old scanner. Another useless salvage run, he thought. But then, something beeped. The scanner flashed. A weak energy signal, not far. Jack narrowed his eyes. Most signals out here came from broken tech or old satellites. But this one was different. Small, alive, and fading fast. He followed the signal across jagged rocks and deep shadows until he found it. A crashed pod half buried in the sand. Smoke still rising from its side. It was alien, no doubt. Not Federation, not even black market design. This was something rare. He pulled his blaster and crept closer. The pod door had been ripped halfway open. Inside, Jack saw her. An alien woman, barely breathing. She lay still, her skin a pale glowing blue, marked with silver lines like veins. Her clothes were torn, and one of her legs looked broken. A soft hum came from the pod, failing life. Support! She didn't move when Jack called out. Then, her eyes opened. They were large, violet, and glowing faintly. She tried to speak but only coughed. Her fingers twitched toward him, weak, dying. Jack hesitated. He knew the rules. The Federation called her kind, dangerous. Enemies. Touching her, helping her, it could mean trouble. But he also knew what it felt like to die alone. Jack cursed under his breath and jumped inside the pod. He pulled her out carefully and carried her back through the dust storm, one step at a time. Her head rested against his chest, barely conscious. She whispered something, but he couldn't understand the words. Back at his shelter, an old mining station turned into a hideout. Jack laid her down on the cot and connected a breathing tube. The machine hummed, then beeped steady. She was still alive. Hours passed. Night on this moon was freezing. Jack wrapped a heat blanket around her. He sat nearby, watching her chest rise and fall. Her beauty was otherworldly, not human, but soft and graceful in a strange way. Her skin shimmered under the light. Suddenly, she woke. She looked at him, confused but calm. "You saved me," she said in perfect English, her voice soft and clear. Jack blinked. "You speak English?" She nodded slowly. Translator, chip, in brain. He sat up straighter. "Who are you?" "I am Lyra," she said. "Of the Serati people." Jack had heard that name before. The Serati were warriors feared across several sectors. But she didn't look like a warrior now. She looked like someone who had run far and nearly died trying. "Why were you in that pod?" he asked. "I escaped," she whispered. "From them." "From who?" Before she could answer, her body shivered. She reached out and touched his hand. "You touched me," she said. Jack raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, I had to pull you out." "No," she said more firmly now, her eyes locking with his. "You saved me. You held me. You touched me while I was dying." Jack frowned. "So what?" Lyra's lips trembled slightly. "In my culture, that means a bond." "A bond?" "Yes," she said slowly. "A sacred one. If someone saves a Serati from death, they are joined. Life mates." Jack laughed awkwardly. "Wait, what? You think we're married now?" Lyra didn't smile. "Not by your laws, but by mine, yes." He stood and rubbed his face. "Listen, I didn't sign up for this. I just didn't want to watch you die." She sat up with effort, eyes full of emotion. "I understand. But now, they will come. My people, they will find me. They will find you." Jack froze. "Why would they care about me?" "Because they will believe you claimed me," Lyra said, "and by doing so, insulted their honor." A sharp sound came from outside, like a distant boom in the air. Turned toward the door. His hand reached for the blaster at his side. Lyra's face turned pale. "They're already here." The wind outside howled like a beast hunting its prey. Jack stood frozen by the door of his shelter, hand on his blaster, heart pounding. Lyra, the alien woman he had just saved, sat behind him, injured, frightened, and now speaking of things that made no sense. Bonded? Life mates? What had he stepped into? A second boom echoed across the rocky plains. Jack peeked through a small crack in the wall. High above, a dark shape cut across the sky, long and silent, like a predator bird. It wasn't a Federation ship. Its engines were too quiet, too smooth. No, this was Sirati technology. Lyra's people had arrived. "They will scan for life forms," she said, her voice tight. "And they will come for me." Jack turned around. "You said they think we're bonded. Why would that matter?" "Because to them, I now belong to you," she said softly, ashamed. "And they will not allow that." Jack felt a chill that had nothing to do with the moon's cold. He never wanted to own anyone. He just saved her life. "Can't we explain?" he asked. Lyra shook her head slowly. "They won't care. They follow the old ways. If I'm bonded to a human, they'll see it as betrayal." Jack looked. Around the shelter, he had one blaster, 2 EME mines, and a wall that wouldn't last 10 seconds against a Sirati strike. Running wasn't an option. His ship was parked in plain sight. They'd catch them before liftoff. He looked at Lyra again, not as an alien now, but as a person. She was breathing harder. Her leg was still damaged. Her hands trembled from the pain. Jack walked over and knelt beside her. "Why did you run?" "From them?" he asked quietly. Lyra hesitated, then said, "Because I refused to kill." Jack blinked. "You were a soldier?" She nodded once. "My squad was ordered to destroy a refugee vessel, full of children. I disobeyed. They called me broken, shamed me, so I ran." He stared at her, stunned. "You risked everything for strangers?" She gave him a sad look. "Isn't that what you did for me?" Jack didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed a bandage and started wrapping her leg. Her skin felt warm under his fingers, almost like light was pulsing through it. "I don't care what your people think," he said. "You're safe with me." Lyra looked into his eyes, uncertain but hopeful. "Even if it means war?" Before Jack could respond, the shelter lights flickered. The roof vibrated slightly. "They're landing," she whispered. Jack moved fast. He opened a hidden panel on the wall and pulled out a cloaking field generator, stolen tech from Anne. Old job. It wouldn't last long, but it might fool the Sirati scanners. He activated it, and the room shimmered. Outside, footsteps echoed, sharp, heavy, deliberate. "They're here," Lyra breathed. Jack placed a finger to his lips. Both of them stayed still, barely breathing. Through the walls, they heard voices, deep and guttural. "Sirati warriors, she was here." One voice growled. Another answered. "We scanned 2 heartbeats. She is bonded. She is no longer pure." "Then we cleanse them both," the first voice said coldly. Jack's hand tightened around the blaster. He looked at Lyra. She reached out and placed her hand on his. A sudden pulse of light burst from her chest, faint but bright enough to make Jack flinch. "What is that?" he asked. "Our bond," she said. "It's real now." Jack stared at her glowing skin, the light dancing beneath her collarbone like a heartbeat. He felt something strange in his own chest. Not fear, not regret, but connection. Outside, the Sirati began charging their weapons. "We can't fight them," Jack said. Lyra nodded. "Then we make them listen." She stood, slowly, painfully, and stepped into the open doorway. Jack tried to stop her. "Wait, what are you doing?" "They will not kill me," she said. "Not if I claim the old law." Jack followed her, heart racing. Together they stepped into the red night. 3 Sirati warriors stood outside, weapons drawn. They raised their rifles, but froze when Lyra lifted her arm and shouted something in her native tongue. A pause. Then one of the warriors lowered his weapon. "What did you say?" Jack asked quietly. "I invoked the right of soul binding," she said. "They can't harm you now." "Not unless they wish to break their own code," the leader growled, stepping forward. "This is madness," he hissed in English. "He is not one of us." "No," Lyra said. "But he saved me when you left." "Me to die. That makes him more than one of you." Jack stood tall beside her, blaster still ready. The leader stared at him, eyes burning. "This is not over, human," he said. "You've started something you do not understand." Then the warriors turned and vanished into the dust. Jack exhaled sharply. Lyra looked up at him. "They'll return," Jack nodded. "Then we'll be ready." The shelter was quiet again, but not calm. The Serati warriors were gone, for now, yet the air still felt heavy with threat. Jack sat by the heater, staring at his blaster lying on the table. Across from him, Lyra sat on the cot, her injured leg wrapped, her glowing skin dim under the flickering lights. She was watching him, not like a soldier watching a threat, but like someone trying to understand a puzzle. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, she broke the silence. "You're not like them," Jack looked up. "Them? The ones who fight? The ones who take," she said softly. "You had a chance to run. You didn't." Jack gave a tired smile. "Maybe I'm just stupid." "No," she said. "You're kind." He stood and walked to the small window, peering out at the dark red horizon. "I used to be a soldier too, you know." Lyra tilted her head. "What happened?" "I stopped." "Following orders," he said. "They told us to bomb a rebel outpost, but we found children there, families hiding in caves. I refused, so they kicked me out." Lyra's eyes softened. "You carry the same shame I do." He turned and met her eyes. "Then why do I feel like I'm the only one who's confused?" She looked down at her hands. "Because your people don't bind by touch. You don't have soul lights." "Soul lights?" Lyra opened her palm and let the soft glow pulse from beneath her skin. "It's a mark left by emotion when someone touches us with real feeling. You held me when I was dying. Your care left a mark in me." Jack stepped closer, uncertain. "But I didn't mean for any of this." "I know," she said. "But meaning doesn't change tradition. The bond has begun. And now we feel each other." Jack frowned. "What do you mean, feel?" She touched her chest lightly. "Right now, you're angry, not at me, at yourself." Jack's face stiffened. "How? I feel it." "Like a warm stone dropped in still water," she whispered. "And I know you lost someone." Jack turned away. "That's none of your business." "I'm sorry," Lyra said gently. "I didn't mean to invade your pain." He was quiet for a moment, fists clenched. Then he exhaled and sat down across from her. "It was my brother," he said. "We served together. Same squad, same mission. But he followed orders. I didn't. When the attack came, I tried to pull him out, but it was too late." Lyra looked down. "You carry guilt." "And I deserve it," Jack muttered. "No," she said. "You carry love. That's what made you act." "That's what saved me too." They sat in silence again, but this time it wasn't cold. Something passed between them, unspoken, real. Suddenly, a small device on Jack's belt beeped. Motion sensor. He jumped up and grabbed the blaster. "Someone's outside." Lyra's glow brightened slightly. "It's not Serati." Jack tapped the screen. Small movement. Too light to be a soldier. He crept toward the door and opened it slowly. Blaster raised. A child stood there. A Serati girl, no older than 10, with glowing white eyes and ragged robes. She looked up at Jack, shivering, holding something in her hands. Jack lowered the blaster, confused. "What?" The girl stepped forward and held out a round silver coin. Lyra gasped from inside. "That's a peace token, from the exiles. Exiles? Jack asked, stunned. Lyra moved beside him, limping. There are Scifi who follow the new way. Peace, unity. Bonding by choice, not duty. They must have heard the call of our bond. Jack looked down at the girl. You're not here to hurt. US? The girl said nothing, just placed the coin in Jack's hand and ran off into the dust. Jack turned the coin over. On it was a carved symbol, 2 hands touching, surrounded by stars. Lyra smiled for the first time. It means hope. But the moment was cut short. The scanner beeped again. This time, the signal was strong. Too strong. They're back, Jack said grimly. And they're not coming for peace. Lyra looked at the coin, then at him. Then we show them something new. Jack raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? She stood tall, fire in her voice. We make the bond real. Not just by tradition. By choice. Jack stared at her, heart racing. You want to bond with me for real? She nodded. Not because I must, but because I trust you. Jack looked at her, really looked. At her strength, her pain, her strange beauty. And the warmth growing in his chest. He took her hand. Then let's show them what human and Scifi together really means. Asterisk, the dew. Stars above the dead moon shimmered with a cruel light. Jack Harper stood outside the shelter, blaster in hand, Lyra beside him. Her wounded leg barely held, but her back was straight, tall like a warrior, proud like a queen. Above them, 3 dark Scifi ships circled like vultures. The bond they had formed, first by accident, now by choice, had started something bigger than either of them. Understood. The peace coin from the child was still warm in Jack's pocket, but peace would not come tonight. A sharp hum cut through the air, engines powering down. The lead Scifi ship dropped low, kicking up a storm of red dust as it landed. The hatch opened with a hiss. 12 Scifi warriors stepped out, armored, armed and angry. But they weren't alone. From the center of the ship emerged a tall figure cloaked in black. His armor shimmered with command markings, and his eyes glowed silver. Lyra whispered, That's High Warlord Dex. He's not just any leader. He's my father. Jack froze. Your father? Lyra nodded slowly. He came himself. Vex walked forward, stopping just meters from them. His voice was cold as stone. You dishonor our blood, Lyra. You bonded with a human, a primitive outsider. You shame your ancestors. Jack stepped in front of her. She didn't shame them. She saved them. She chose peace. Vex's eyes narrowed. You speak boldly for someone who doesn't understand our ways. I understand enough, Jack said. You left her to die. I didn't. The warriors raised their weapons. Vex raised a hand, stopping them. You still don't see what this bond means, he said darkly. If this human remains your mate, the old alliances will break. War will come. The council will not forgive. This, Lyra stepped forward. Then let them come. We will not hide. Vex looked at her for a long moment, then removed a small, silver cube from his cloak. He threw it to the ground. The moment it touched the dust, a glowing ring of blue energy burst from it. It spread quickly, surrounding Jack and Lyra in a circle of light. A challenge has been given, Vex declared. A trial of blood and truth, Lyra gasped. That right hasn't been used in centuries. What is it? Jack asked quickly. A test, Lyra said. One you must face alone, Vex's voice echoed. If this human believes he is worthy of the Scifi bond, he must survive the trial. If he fails, he dies. If he succeeds, the bond will be honored. Jack looked at the glowing circle, then back at Lyra. What happens if I refuse? They'll kill us both, she said softly. Jack took a deep breath. Then I guess I better win. Inside the trial field, everything changed. The world turned dark. The stars vanished. The moon disappeared. Jack now stood inside a black space, filled with swirling silver mist. A voice boomed all around him. Not Vex, not Lyra, but something ancient and cold. You are not Serati. You are not chosen. You are not one of us. Why do you seek the bond? Jack raised his voice. Because I care for her. I chose her. Then prove it, the voice said. Suddenly, shadows formed around him. Warriors from Lyra's past, enemies from Jack's memories. His brother appeared, wounded, calling for help. Jack ran to him, but the image vanished. Then a new figure appeared, Lyra, crying, chained, abandoned. Why didn't you save me? The vision asked. Jack dropped to his knees, holding his head. The voice spoke again. Pain makes the bond. But pain alone is not enough. You must stand and protect what you love. A blinding light struck from above, and Jack screamed as it tore into his chest. But he didn't fall. He stood, sweat dripping, eyes blazing. I won't run from her, he shouted. Not like I did before, not like I did with my brother. The darkness began to crack. The voice said, softer now. Then you are more than human. You are something new. The world exploded in light. Jack collapsed outside the trial circle. Lyra ran to him, eyes wide. You passed, she whispered, touching his face. He gave a tired smile. That was the worst test I've ever taken. Vex stepped forward, but this time, his posture had changed. You are not weak, he admitted. You have fire. You have truth. He turned to his warriors. The bond is accepted. Lyra gasped. Jack blinked. Even the warriors lowered their weapons. But before they could celebrate, a sharp alarm blared from Lyra's wrist device. She looked down, face pale. What is it? Jack asked. She met his eyes. The council. They just declared both of us enemies of the throne. Jack stood slowly, steadying her with one arm. Then, let's show them what enemies like us can do. The news spread like fire through the stars. The Serati Council had declared Jack Harper and Lyra outlaws. Their bond, once sacred by tradition, was now labeled a threat to the Empire's control. But Jack didn't care. He hadn't saved Lyra to follow rules. He hadn't stood through that pain-soaked trial to please old warriors. He did it because he saw something in her, something worth fighting for. And now, they would have to fight harder than ever. Inside the shelter, Jack paced while Lyra sat, cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, breathing steady. The glow in her chest pulsed with rhythm, soft, alive, connected to him. They'll send assassins, Lyra said calmly. Jack looked up. Then we don't wait for them. She opened her eyes. You want to strike first? I want to end this, he said. If the council thinks we're weak, they'll keep coming. But if we show them truth, real truth, maybe others will follow. Lyra nodded slowly. There's a way, an ancient rite, forbidden now, but older than the council. Jack raised an eyebrow. Another trial? Lyra gave a soft laugh. No more pain visions, I promise. This one is public, a trial of fire and truth, held on a world called Zeruan, beneath the crystal spire. And what do we do there? We show the bond, not just to a council, but to all. 3 days later, they stood on the glassy sands of Zeruan. Red sun above, tall alien crowds below. The crystal spire towered high in the air, blue and gold, humming with ancient power. The Serati believed it was where the first bond was formed, when two enemies chose love over war. Now, Jack and Lyra would walk through it as one, but they would not walk alone. Vex had returned, not as enemy, but as witness. Though he didn't speak much, his presence carried weight. The council had no choice but to attend. Ships landed. Thousands of Serati gathered. The bond between Jack and Lyra had become a symbol, a crack in an empire built on fear. Inside the spire, Jack and Lyra stood before a giant flame, blue, cold, beautiful. This fire reads our souls, Lyra whispered. If the bond is false, it burns us. If it's true, it becomes light. Jack stepped forward. Let's give them something to see. They joined hands. The moment their palms touched, the flame roared, not with heat, but with light. It shot upward, spilling out of the top of the spire like a beacon in the stars. The crowd gasped. Vex stepped forward, looking into the flame. Then, from behind the crowd, a loud screech broke the silence. A Serati battlecruiser dropped from orbit, not from the council, but from a rogue faction, those who refused change. They came to kill them both. Explosions rocked the ground. Warriors scattered. Vex drew his blade, roaring orders. But the attackers were fast and brutal. Lyra grabbed Jack's hand. We have to protect the spire, Jack nodded. We end this now. What followed was chaos and fire. Jack ran through the battlefield, taking cover between crystal pillars, firing shots with perfect aim. Lyra, though limping, summoned energy from her core, releasing glowing waves that knocked enemies off their feet. The spire's fire pulsed brighter with every moment they fought side by side. But then, a blast hit the ground near Jack. He flew back, coughing, half buried in rubble. A massive Serati warrior loomed over him. Axe raised, Jack's blaster was gone. The warrior roared, but stopped mid-swing. Lyra stood between them, her body glowing like a star, eyes fierce. She is mine, she said. The warrior paused. Confused. Jack, bleeding, whispered, not yours, I'm yours too. The warrior hesitated, then dropped his weapon and backed away. The battlefield slowed. More warriors stopped fighting. Some dropped weapons. Others knelt before the fire. Vex shouted above them all. The bond has spoken. Let all who honor the old ways follow them. One by one, warriors joined. The rogue faction was surrounded and forced to retreat. Hours later, the battlefield was quiet. The fire of the spire still burned, now golden and high. Lyra sat beside Jack, wrapping his wounds. You could have died, she whispered. He looked at her hand on his chest. So could you. But we didn't, she said, her voice trembling. Because we stood together. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. That's what truth looks like. From the edge of the crowd, Vex watched them. Not as an enemy, not even as a father, but as a believer. He stepped forward. The council will resist, but they cannot erase what the spire has shown. Jack stood, shoulder bruised but head high. Then we make something new. Lyra stood beside him, a place for both of us. Jack looked out at the crowd, and for anyone who chooses love over fear. The image of Jack and Lyra standing before the crystal spire spread across the stars like a spark in dry grass. From mining colonies to hidden Serati temples, from human border stations to outlaw moons, everyone saw the golden fire. It wasn't just a symbol of survival. It was proof that something impossible had happened. A human and a Serati, bound not by war or conquest, but by choice. And the galaxy could no longer pretend to ignore it. Inside a neutral orbiting station called the Lattice, leaders from 50 species gathered. The station spun slowly above a dying star, its halls lined with banners from centuries of peace talks and betrayals. Now, for the first time in recorded history, a Serati stood beside a human. Not as enemy, but as partner. Jack adjusted the new formal coat Lyra had chosen for him. It was stitched with silver threads, a Serati sign of truth. He looked awkward, but determined. You know this won't be easy, he muttered. Lyra smiled. Gently. Nothing worth doing ever is. They stepped into the grand chamber, thousands watching, some with curiosity, others with hate. At the center stood Archon Vel, a serpent-faced diplomat with skin like polished stone. He slammed a cane on the floor. The Council of Species calls this gathering to order. State your purpose. Jack stepped forward. We came not for war, but to end one. Murmurs filled the chamber. a Ruvian general hissed. "You are human. You breed conflict," a Serati elder spat. "And she is a traitor to her blood." But then Vex entered the room, armor shining, head held high. "I once believed that too," he said, "but I was blind. The old ways chained us to fear. These two broke those chains." He turned to Lyra. "My daughter, you carry both our blood and a new fire." Jack added, "We don't ask for approval. We offer a path peace between species who were born to hate." The Ruvian general scoffed. "Peace built on what?" Jack looked around the room, his voice strong. "Built on mercy, on moments where one person could have walked away, but didn't." He glanced at Lyra. "Built on a bond stronger than law, because it's chosen." Vel's voice rang again. "This is not how alliances are made." No ceremony, no council vote. But suddenly, a screen lit up behind them. It showed thousands, millions, across planets, stations, even Serati colonies, holding up symbols of the bond. Some touched palms, others lit blue candles. Many simply stood in silence. A peaceful uprising had begun. "The people have chosen," Vex said quietly. "What will you do? Ignore them?" In a quiet room afterward, Jack sat on a metal bench, head spinning. He never asked to be a symbol. He just helped a dying woman. And now the galaxy was changing. Lyra sat beside him, her glowing hand over his. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. He looked at her, really looked. At the quiet power in her, the grace, the courage, the strange beauty that had stopped feeling alien. "No," he said. "But I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of being enough," he said. "For you, for this." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "You're more than enough, Jack. You're human, and that's exactly what the galaxy needed," he chuckled. "That's the nicest insult I've ever heard." She laughed too, for the first time in days. Then the door opened. A messenger stepped in, not Serati, not human. A thin insectoid diplomat named Tivik. "You're needed," he said. "The council just voted." Back in the chamber, silence fell as the final tally was shown. Out of 50, 32 voted in favor. A new coalition would be formed, not to destroy war, but to heal what war had broken. Jack and Lyra would stand as its first living symbol, an oath carved not into paper, but into history. Vex stepped forward, removing a crest from his armor and placing it in Jack's hands. "I once feared what you were," he said. "Now I trust what you've become." Jack nodded. "We still have enemies." "Yes," Vex said, "but now you have more allies." Lyra turned to the crowd. "Let this be the bond that changed everything," she said. "Not just between Serati and human, but between all those who've forgotten what unity feels like." The chamber stood slowly but surely and gave their first true bow. Later, aboard a private ship flying through quiet stars, Jack and Lyra sat by the window, watching the galaxy spin. "You realize," Jack said, "this all started because—" "I refused to walk away," she smiled. "Because you were human." "No," he said, "because I was me and I saw you." They sat in silence, hands together. Not because of tradition, not because of war, but because they chose each other. And now the stars were watching. Asterisk. The stars were calm, but the galaxy was not. After the council's historic vote, Jack and Lyra had become something no one expected. Not just a couple, not just a symbol, but a spark. Their bond, once feared, now inspired revolts, questions, and hope across star systems long ruled by fear. But peace always comes with a price. On the edge of neutral space, in a place called the Ring of Silence, they waited not to fight, but to protect a single message, a signal, the final broadcast. Call to every forgotten soul. Jack stood by the transmitter's core, a strange mix of Earth tech and Serati crystal. The message he had recorded would be sent across all channels, unable to be blocked or silenced. But the old powers had sent One last fleet dot, and it was coming straight for them. Lyra looked out the window of the small star station. 4 warships. Fast, armed, Council loyalists. Jack checked the power levels. Transmitter needs 5 more minutes. Lyra didn't blink. Then we hold. He looked at her, standing strong, no longer limping, dressed in armor mixed with both her culture and his. She was radiant, not just from the glow in her chest, but from the fire in her soul. "You don't have to stay," Jack said. "You've done enough." Lyra stepped forward and touched his chest. "I didn't fall in love with you to watch from the shadows." Jack smiled softly. "So we die together?" "No," she said. "We live together. Or we make sure they never forget us." The first missile hit the outer shield. The station shook. Jack and Lyra ran to defense panels, activating turrets and signal boosters. From orbit, the attacking fleet sent one final warning. "Shut down the broadcast. Give up the human. The bond dies today." Jack leaned into the mic. "Then you better send more ships." The battle began. Lyra moved like lightning, controlling the shield harmonics, sending feedback bursts to disable incoming drones. Jack manned the railguns, targeting enemy weak points, not aiming to kill, but to delay. Minutes passed, then the shield gave out. Enemy soldiers teleported onto the station. But what they found was not weakness. They found Jack and Lyra back to back, fighting like they had one heart, one mind. Jack wasn't trained in alien martial arts. Lyra had never used human weapons, but they adapted. Together, she blocked, he struck. He rolled, she fired. The enemies fell one by one. Blood hit the walls, but the transmitter still glowed. Then came the captain, a Serati warlord in black armor, his eyes burning with hate. "You ruined centuries of order," he growled. "No," Lyra said calmly. "We reminded the galaxy what love looks like." He swung his blade. Lyra blocked, but the force threw her against the wall. Jack screamed and charged. The 2 men crashed into a console. Sparks flew. The warlord punched Jack hard, cracking ribs. "You are nothing," he spat. "Just a man." Jack gasped, blood in his mouth, but smiled, and that was enough. He reached to his belt, pressed the signal. "Override." The room filled with white light. The message went live, across hundreds of worlds, across war zones, ruins, and spaceports. The message played. Jack's voice. Simple, honest. "I'm not special. I'm not a hero. I just saw someone hurting, and I didn't walk away. They tell you to stay apart, to fear the other, to protect the old ways, but I say, build something new. Together." I loved someone I was told to hate, and she loved me back, not because of a rule, because it felt right. So ask yourself, what do you want this galaxy to become? The transmission ended with a simple image: Jack and Lyra, holding hands, standing under the light of the crystal spire. The warlord fled. His mission had failed. The enemy fleet scattered, not from force, but from the weight of truth. Later, as medics arrived and the stars returned to silence, Lyra held Jack's hand. His side was bruised, his face pale, but his eyes were bright. "You did it," she whispered. "No," he said. "We did." She laughed softly and laid her head on his chest. For a long time, they just breathed. No battle, no speech, just the peace they fought to earn. Years passed. The galaxy changed, slowly, but surely. Some worlds refused to accept the bond. Others built statues of it. A new generation was born, raised on stories of a man and a woman who broke the rules and saved the stars. Jack and Lyra disappeared from the public eye, but in hidden gardens, in orbiting libraries, on frontier schools and peace outposts, their names lived, not as rulers, not as warriors, but as the 2 who proved that to love across stars was the most human thing of all. Asterisk.